Hey. Whew. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay. Um, Early in the morning, I figure I got a few things I want to say. Bags under my eyes, a little tired, but I got my coffee going. So I want to kind of talk this morning about minimum wage. And in general, with everything, I think you have to know your enemy. And why? Because the enemy against you. Good morning, Trent. Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Kim. If the enemy says jump, duck. If the enemy says duck, jump. If the enemy says go left, go right. If the enemy says go right, damn it, you better go left. So, so in terms of the minimum wage, man, all right, I'm just gonna put something out there, and I want y'all to kind of think about it, because I mean, the way I operate is I listen to one side say something, and well, let me be clear. I listen to the intelligent people I know, like the deep thinkers on one side that I know, say something, and I take it over to the deep thinkers and intelligent people, because don't think that I'm smart or anything. I'm scamming. I go to the intelligent people on the other side, um, and I pose that to them, and I let them give me the other side of the good debate, and I'll just sit back, because I was an analyst for a long time, and I'll just sit back and I'll try to analyze the situation. Who's making sense? So they right about that, and they right about that, and and so you got to think these things out, right? Like, everybody's cheering for the minimum wage. Yeah, we need the minimum wage, or a lot of people are. And I'm going to ask you to think about the long-term effect of the minimum wage, right? Like, what possibly could be the intention? I think if you look at the end point of a decision, and maybe even the reason why you do it, you can determine what the purpose of that is, because the ruling elite, they're always handing us this stuff, right? um, and if we don't like really think about it, we get trapped, and we actually end up voting and jumping for something that actually hurts our children or even hurts us. And so the first statement I'll put out there, I try to walk around to the point, but this one you can't. You just have to put it out there. And so this one, y'all just gonna be mad right from the very beginning. But the bottom line is this: there's always been a direct correlation between crime and employment. The less people who are employed, the more crime there is. That is a fact. It's not gonna change. It's just always been the case. Why? Simply because of human nature and survival mode. If I have to feed my family and I don't have a job, I'm gonna feed my family. So let's, I'll try to do it in ways that match up with my ethics and my morals, but my kids aren't gonna starve. And I think if you're a parent with love in your heart, your kids aren't gonna starve either. And so there's always a direct correlation between unemployment and crime. So then I ask this: if you raise wages, if you raise the wage, is that going to increase jobs, or is that going to decrease jobs? Like, really think about that for a minute. And if it's going to decrease jobs because the wage goes up, then you're going to increase unemployment. If you increase unemployment, you're going to increase crime. If you increase crime, you're going to increase the police state. Why? Because people are going to say we need more police on the street, which, in my argument, in what makes sense to me, is what they want, right? So you have a two-party march towards this massive police state. that even not even the police want. Even the police are saying, whoa, hey, we got to hold on, man. You guys are rolling out laws. And now, mind you, you got some cowboys, man, who love the tanks and getting all the equipment coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. But the majority that I've talked to are like, we don't want to go this direction. Like most police officers, they don't want to be pitted against citizens. So I don't want to get off target, but the whole point is this, is that if you roll out a minimum wage, what you're doing is you're historically, which is what they've always done, you're locking in a caste system. You're locking out an organic competing market. Why? Because if I'm raised in a family and I wasn't, my father, he put a computer in my hands when I was like 6 years old and I was programming by 7. But if I were born in a family where my father didn't do that, and I didn't have the ability to compete with other kids and go get these jobs. I mean, I wasn't given a typing course, so I knew how to type. This is stuff we did back in the 80s, but it meant that I would have to take a job and compete with other kids whose parents gave them more tools or resources to compete. I'm not going to talk about which groups have more resources or which groups have less resources. The whole point is, I come from a resource-low family, and now I got to compete with this kid whose dad put him in typing classes and he learned, programming, things like that. It means that I have only one tool to compete with those kids, and that is, you know what? You're going to pay him $10 an hour. I'll do the job for $7. And you know what? I'll work hard. I'll work early. I'll work late hours. And the reason I'm putting that out there is because if you take out organic competition, we're going to be in some real trouble. If you go back to the beginning, let's go back to the Roman times, right? Like, they had these things called apprentices, right? And so what you have to do as an apprentice is you would take a job on, and they would basically pay you nothing. I won't talk about all the things that the Romans would do to you, but you would sign on as an apprentice with the blacksmith or the carpenter, and you would work for low or no wages, but you would pick up the trade, pick up the skill, and then you would go off and open your own. And that is an organic way to build an economy, and that's how we should be building our economy, and that's how we've always built our economy. But the problem is, when you have this thing called big business, they have these things called profit margins. And that profit margin on that house or that car or that cog, it has to be met, right? And so if I'm not making my profit margin, I have to come up with schemes to make sure that people keep buying my ignorantly priced houses or my ignorantly priced cars. I don't want to lower my costs because I can't lower my costs. I've got a big operational budget. I got 80,000 employees, and I don't want the company that has 10,000 employees competing with me, because they got a smooth running business, man. They can make their cars cheaper. Their cars are slightly better. And so what we're doing in propping up basically a false profit margin, a bubble, a false economy, we're propping up big business. And this is my point, right? Like, if big business wants it, if the ruling elite want it, go the other direction. If they say jump, you better duck. And so they're promoting these minimum wages for a couple reasons. I mean, if I'm in the prison industry, I'm promoting it because I know what crime is going to do for my industry. I know it's going to fill my prisons, man. And we spent the last couple years building some massive prisons. Man, we have a prison down here in Philadelphia. Oh my God, it's bigger than the Comcast Center. It's bigger than a massive prison. Why do you think they would build that big old prison? Do you think they would build a massive prison to leave it empty? So the argument I make, and the case I make, is that, we can say, what, these aren't living wages, right? Like, people can't live on these wages. And I think that's true. That's completely true. But we can either blame the wage or we can blame the price of the product. And I submit to you that the price of the house is too high. I submit that the price of the cars are too high. I submit that the price of the clothes are too high. I submit that the price of everything we buy in our economy is too high, and big business don't want to give it up. They got profit margins to meet, and they're going to start closing up if we don't have the ability to give them more of our resources. And so if I'm a big business, I'm going to do my best to kill my competition, and that's how you kill your competition. I'll go to an example. Oh man, Walter Williams, he's got a couple good examples, but he had an example. He said, "It's a funny cat." He said, you can make certain assumptions, right, by looking at people. He said, so if there was a large, fat, overweight, ugly, cigar-smoking guy, old, and you saw him with a 23-year-old supermodel, he said you can make some assumptions about his income, right? And this is all true. And how did he end up that way? Well, so he used what he had to compete with the young guys with the six packs and going to the beach. And how did he do that? Is he worked hard, or maybe he didn't, but he used his resource to give himself a leverage organically, right? But then the good-looking guys might not like that. And so they might come around and say, you know what? We need to make a law. We need to take out our competition. We need to make a law that there's only so much you can buy your wife in a year. We need to cap this thing at $5,000. You can't buy your wife any more gifts beyond $5,000. And that'll kill the competition. Magically, large, cigar-smoking, old, overweight guys won't have wives. Well, they'll have wives that are more like them because they killed the competition. They took out the organic nature of it. And so I think that's a great example. But what it comes down to is you're supporting the minimum wage. You have to ask yourself, what are you supporting? The world over, if you look at your history, it is the #1 tool of racism all over the world. All over the world. It began with apartheid. Why? Because they took out the competition. They took out the ability of people, they took out the ability for people of low resources to actually compete with the workers that were higher preferred. What do you do when you don't have a job? You know, and so, and I'm not saying that we don't do nothing. I'm not saying that. I'm not going all the way down that road. I'm saying that we need to make sure we have good solutions. And if the solution is going to make, I hate these words, but if the solution is going to make black lives not matter, it's going to make white lives not matter, it's going to make Native American lives not matter, if you come from a family of low resources and we take out their ability to compete, we're going to need all those prisons. We're going to need all of them. And I know it's hard to hear for a lot of people. And it's, Brother Bill put out a good video, man. I posted it this morning. And what he was talking about how you get into a debate with a flat earther, right? Oh boy, you know what? I was called a round earther, and I was like, oh my Lord. But there are times when we want to believe something and we're trying to convince ourselves of it because it will help us on the surface, right? And the stark reality is that someone orchestrated this. Someone put this plan together, and we have to ask ourselves, is this really going to help us or hurt us? And me, I'm all about sustainability, man. I'm all about green. I'm all about organic. I'm all about empowering people. And one of the things that I think we have to get away from is we have to get away from the worker mindset, right? We've got to get away from the slave mind, right? The I need to be a worker. I've got to have a job. I've got to have a job. Because that mindset is ingrained in you by large corporations. Why? Because the men and women who own those corporations have big yachts, They need gas in those yachts. They got to compete because their neighbor just bought a bigger yacht, so they got to buy a bigger yacht. Or he just bought his fourth yacht, so I got to have five. And how you do that is you convince a population of people that they're not worthy of having a business or driving a yacht. And so you really riddle in, you beat in this idea that you're a worker. You're the worker class. And I'm not a jobs guy. I'm not a jobs guy, because the problem when we do that, one of the biggest mistakes I think we ever made is everybody left the farm, right? When the industrial age came, everybody left the farm, they left the blacksmith, they left grandma and grandpa and all those businesses all the Americans owned, all that land that they owned, they gave it up, they sold it, and they went to the cities and they got jobs, right? And it's it was the furthering of the slave class, the furthering of the worker class. And we don't have a society that's designed for 90% of the people to be slave class or worker class, and 10% or less to be business class and big business class, right? This is why we have world wars. This is why your politicians don't listen at all to you. They couldn't give two about what you think, because there are mega businesses that funnel all that money and keep them employed and ensure they'll be reelected. And I don't even blame them. But we built up a phony economy so that businesses that should not exist, I mean, just mega businesses, way too big, who can buy a government, who can buy every vote from half of the politicians to ensure they get a law, Monsanto Protection Act, to guarantee that you can't even sue their company if their GMO seeds kill you or your children or make you sick. So I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying that if the majority of our country are workers and not business owners, hopefully you can see where this ends, right? Like, you can see where this is going when we have a government that's completely ineffective to fight the resources of big business. You gotta let them fail. You have to let them fail, because Generation Y is massive, and those kids coming out, there are tons of them, right? Like, you had the baby boomers, they were massive, and Generation X, there was almost none of us. But we had a whole bunch of kids, and Generation Y, for the past 5 years, they've been graduating and they're coming out, and these kids are going into a market, and I'm just saying, give them the ability to compete. Give them that ability. Give them the ability to say, you know what, I'll do the job for 30,000. I'll do the job for 20,000. But also give the kids from the families of low resources the ability to compete with that too. I don't have the degree, but I'm a quick learner, I'm a quick study, I'll go out on YouTube. You can learn everything from YouTube. YouTube can, oh my goodness. But but the whole birth and the baby thing, mom, don't do that there's a lot of dumb stuff on YouTube too. You need doctors, stop it. So, but don't take out the ability for those kids to compete. And I'm not gonna belabor the point, and I'm gonna end this. My first job is, how much did I make? I think I made $10 a week. My father got me a job at the church, cleaning the bathrooms. Listen, if you want to know why I'm humble, I had a family that would not let me be humble. Would not let me be anything beyond it. Church people, I love them to death. I do. But y'all, some of the nasties, oh my goodness, the things I saw as a child. You ever see the movie where Eddie Murphy walked to his daddy daycare? He walked in the bathroom. He was like, the kid had diarrhea, and he was like, he was looking around. He looked. All right, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna leave my church folk alone. I'm gonna leave y'all alone. But that was my first job at $10 a week. My next job was My next job, well, no, I was a paper boy. I was in my brother had a paper route, and I think he earned about 10 cents a paper, and I think he paid us 5 cents. My middle brother paid us 5 cents a paper, and of course he kept the other 10 cents. That dude, man, he was a business mogul at at 10 years old. Boy, he knew how to exploit young black children. But anyway, let me stop there. Um, but when you don't have, oh, the other thing is lawn care. Do you realize that as a kid we used to go knock on the people's door to rake the leaves and mow the lawns, and we just got pennies basically for doing it, but it taught work ethics, right? It taught the value of the dollar. It taught the things that we don't want to get deleted. Lawn care now is a business owned by adults. Kids don't do it anywhere. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, man. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm not saying don't do anything with the minimum wage. I'm saying that if you look at where it's gonna go and you don't want to get there, and it's helping the people you don't want to help, then don't support it. I think there are better solutions, and we need to think about what those solutions are. But right now we've got a large unemployment rate. And if you want to ask yourself, how do you solve unemployment, which unfortunately nobody is going to do in the government. Why? Because it doesn't help the people who fund them. If you actually delete the minimum wage right now, you know every American will have a job. Every single one. Now, mind you, the younger ones, they might have 2 jobs. Some cultures might have 3. And I had 3 jobs for a period of time in my life. I had 3 jobs at one point. So, and that was my way to compete, right? That's what I had to do so I could drive my little sports car, have my little townhouse, and doing what I was doing while I was in college. Don't take out a person's ability to compete who are from lower resources, because we need them. It's how we have an organic economy. We need to have small businesses with the ability to compete with medium-sized businesses, and medium-sized businesses that compete with large corporations. Because if we keep going the direction of fluffing up this phony, non-organic economy, we will get to a point where it's going to collapse. Either it's going to collapse, they're going to buy the government completely if they haven't already, or we're going to continue the wars. Why are we at war? Because we're broke. And those corporations need the petrodollar to keep rolling in. And they're going to keep bombing and killing regardless of what you want. If we keep propping up this phony economy and we continue to bail out these monstrous corporations. That's my 2 cents. Go ahead and give me some fire. But I'm completely against the minimum wage because I'm completely against the prison system. I'm completely against taking out people's ability to compete. And I'm also completely against racism.